No, a lot of times it is unintentional. Maybe, yeah, they are trying to be dirty sometimes, but it doesn't matter. That foul needs to be treated the same way, whether it was unintentional or not. A foul is a foul. So I was really doing some thinking about this. Obviously, like as the rules are right now, unintentionality does matter in MMA, but I think there needs to be just a better scoring system in general. There needs to be a complete overhaul in the system because taking a whole point for a foul also isn't normal in sports, right? Because in UFC, taking a point means that you lost the entire round. That's a severe penalty. In basketball, for example, the fouls, based on how hard they are, have levels and varying degrees of punishment. So, if, like a technical foul versus a flagrant foul, they all have different kinds of penalties attached to them. I think MMA needs to be considered very similarly, where eye pokes are very damaging to the fight. Maybe keep that, point warning there, or so not a warning, just taking a point immediately. But maybe for a groin shot, for example, where if it's a little bit easier to be carrying on through the fight and not as compromised, maybe the penalties a little bit less, or like cage stalling or fence grabbing, things like this, where like maybe we need to just overhaul the scoring system where it's not just a 10-9 system, and we can play around more with the fouls and apply the appropriate degrees of punishment to them.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I don't know how exactly you fix this. I mean, obviously, you mentioned like in any other sport. I mean, I can't think of another sport where it matters if the foul is intentional or not. Like
Mhm.
in football, it doesn't matter if you're holding intentionally or unintentionally, like you're still going to get a penalty. Like I don't understand why it matters in the UFC. That's something so strange, especially when it's like something like an eye poke or a groin shot or like a strike to the back of the head where it could literally like alter their career by harming them long term physically. Again, I don't really know how to fix this issue. You were saying maybe we alter the scoring system round by round. What if there was some kind of thing similar to basketball where if you foul one time, right? Doesn't matter if it's intentional or not, you initially like you immediately go into like the bonus. Like in basketball, for example, it's like, you have five team fouls every quarter. If you exceed five team fouls, then it's automatic free throws for the opponent every single time. What if, you have one chance to have unintentional penalty, and then any other unintentional thing is either points taken or money taken off of the contract for your fight. If you show up, there's a lot of guys who get like guaranteed money. If you win, it doubles the money. Maybe like it takes away the guaranteed money, and then you have to win. I don't know. There's something has to be done. It's also really strange to me how like different referees will consider different penalties intentional or unintentional. That's something that needs to be more consistent. The UFC really needs to clean up that aspect of the officiating. But yeah, man, it's so strange. We've seen a lot of like below the belt strikes, a lot of eye pokes, and a few, not as many, but like a few back of the head strikes. Are those types of like illegal strikes as bad as grabbing the fence? Maybe not, but they're still fouls at the end of the day. I don't know, man. I mean, besides that, I don't really have anything else to comment on that besides something needs to be done.
All right,
Yeah, I
I got
mean,
some stuff I want to say about this.
oh
Okay,
yeah, please, Nick, please go ahead,
so
please, please.
I think y'all are comparing this to like fouls and shit in other sports and whatnot. But I think this is like something that needs to be treated differently because these fouls that happen in other sports, they're not as dangerous as the fouls that happen in UFC. You get poked in the eye one time really bad, you could lose that eye or both eyes. You know, you get kneed really bad, in the groin area. That can have some severe, medical effects. You get punched in the back of the head. I mean, I'm blanking on this dude's name, but I remember this one guy. He got punched back in the head, years ago, and now he's like, he has to live in like a special care home. So in this instance, I think the punishments need to be immediate and severe to prevent this from ever happening, even just once. I remember Juho, you said it maybe like in an episode or two ago, where if someone pokes someone in the eye in UFC, immediately dock a point. If it happens again, I think it needs to be more severe. They immediately lose the game, and if it happens again, or along those lines, they immediately lose the game, and then they don't get paid for that fight. Like, I know it's severe, but like, these fouls are dangerous and they need to be dealt with accordingly.
I totally agree with you. I
I
totally
mean,
agree
I
with
think
everything you just said. I mean, these fouls are a lot more dangerous because it's fighting, and I think because it's fighting right now, people treat these fighters like barbarians and warriors and like beasts, and like if they don't continue, then it's the onus is on them, right? So that's why like a lot of fighters right now, I think the as Nick was just saying, the refereeing is way too lax. The referees always say like we don't want to get involved, we don't want to get involved. Okay, well your job is to get involved and officiate. It is a sport at the end of the day. It's not just a fight, right? Like this is a sport and it has to be regulated and officiated accordingly. And yeah, I think the punishments need to be very draconian. Um, and especially in the case of like an eye poke, if a fighter can't continue after an eye poke, it just needs to be disqualification on the other guy at that point, right? Like if we go to the Cyril Gane fight, that honestly should have been a DQ on Cyril Gane, right? I mean,
it
and I'm
shouldn't
not a
have been
Cyril
a
Gane
no
hater.
contest.
It shouldn't have been a no contest. It should have been he should have lost that because they lost from a foul, right? Um,
Exactly.
so uh, a couple more things before we can change the subject here. I was thinking that the 10-9 system that we have, the 10-8 system, comes from boxing, and it's a lot easier to do this kind of scoring with boxing when all you're worrying about is knockdowns and punches, right?
Right,
MMA,
right.
it's so much more dynamic. There's wrestling, submissions, right? How do you like score that, right? And with this 10-9 system, it's just objectively impossible to do it holistically. I believe like we should have a system, maybe even something similar to like basketball or like the PFL even has a scoring system where rather than, doing a 10-9, they just score like they'll do like points, right? So if you get like a heavy kick or you do damage, you get like a certain amount of points, right? And now I'm just adding stuff on like for my own self, but imagining like if you get a takedown, you get an X amount of points. You try to do a submission and you almost sink it in, you get a certain amount of points. If you get a foul, then like let's say the other person loses points. Maybe we could do something more dynamic like that with MMA, where the scoring reflects our sport and we're not just taking some outdated system. Um, but
Yeah,
yeah,
I
that's what
agree.
I
I
think.
mean,
Go ahead. Sorry.
there have been a lot of like inconsistent decision victories I've noticed the past handful of years. So like, revamping the way that you like, I don't know, the rubric for like how you score a fight. I do think that's something that should be updated and can be updated relatively easily. Something else I just thought of is like only way you're going to get anyone to get on the same page is for the UFC not to be an independent contractor based, system. I think, with this, big money deal from Paramount coming in, I think the fighters need to unionize and they need to get together and be like, hey, listen up. We're not going to fight until we get a more clear set of rules and how they're enforced. And then the refs need to get together. They need to, understand. I mean, I know that they already do get together and they get, they practice officiating. They watch tape and everything, but they need to get on the same page because it's so inconsistent from ref to ref. And so the refs need to get together and unionize. The fighters need to get together and unionize. They need to, converse with each other and find a solution to this. The only problem is the UFC doesn't want to do that because then they're going to be liable for paying at least a portion of the medical bills of these fighters. And, they're going to have to provide benefits after the fact. If they've fought a certain amount of time in the UFC, they're, able to get extended health care when they retire. So UFC for too long has gotten away with, being cheap and not paying the guys the money. I mean, not just guys, all the fighters. They're not paying the fighters what they're worth. And, they're bringing in so much money. They just got $1 billion deal done with Paramount. I think something can be done about this. The fighters need to unionize. I think it's, point blank. That's all that needs to be done. And that's where it starts and it'll evolve from there in terms of making a better sports product, not just a gladiator match.
Dude, I mean, I think you just brought up such an excellent point, and it really gets down to the root cause of all this. We want to treat the UFC like a real sport, but it's times like this where we realize it's just not there yet, right? Like these guys the competition level and like just the people involved, like yes, you have top level athletes. It's a huge growing sport, but just basic things like a union for the athletes is not being addressed. Like, fighter protection, fighter safety, cheating, all of this stuff, it's like kind of coming to a boiling point, I think. Like the UFC was like, we've seen it grow to such a huge degree, and as fans, we appreciate it. But all those underlying problems that have been there, that the UFC, it feels like it's kind of just been pressing down, right? They've been just so focused on expanding that these underlying root issues are just, showing their ugly head now, after just being compressed and compressed and compressed. It's like these eye pokes have been such a huge problem, and the UFC is just like, oh, we'll fix it later, we'll fix it later, that it manifested itself in one of the most important fights of their timeline, the heavyweight
Exactly.
championship, right? And now they're playing catch up. So another point with the money and the unionizing, Gabe, and I think this is where we can move on, is the gambling, right? We have a very, serious gambling scandal on our hands. Today, actually, the FBI visited the UFC top brass to ask and investigate. Um, Very interesting and weird situation going on here. The fighter is named Isaac Dolgarian. I think I'm pronouncing that right. And Gabe, maybe you can
You know
help
what,
fill us
Juho?
in a little bit on this.
Real quick, I don't mean to interrupt you. I wanted to say this also about the whole unionizing thing. I think
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
unionizing will make it more clear how much fighters should earn based on star power, based on, we're moving on from the pay-per-view model very soon and everything. And you're going to be able to retain the fighters because they're going to feel like they're paid what they're worth because it's an agreed upon value, right? Like in the NBA, they have the supermax contracts based on accolades. Like if you have a certain amount of knockouts, if you have a certain amount of ranked fight wins, for example, that can be equivalent to like making all-star teams, making defensive player of the year teams, making all NBA teams. And that'll like help the UFC more clearly determine how much to pay each fighter because there's been an issue in the past with the UFC in terms of keeping their stars because they feel like they're worth more and they move on to different organizations. We all know what happened with Ronda Rousey. She became, one of the biggest stars in the UFC. She revolutionized women's fighting, women's MMA as a whole. She had all these people on her back after the Holly Holm loss, and she was like, you know what, I'm tired of this. I made this sport grow in popularity so much, and they're not appreciating me. They're not paying me what I'm worth. I'm going to go to the WWE. You can look at Brock Lesnar too. I mean, same situation. You can look at Francis Ngannou, who could never get a agreed upon amount of money to get him to stay with the UFC. He decided to go to boxing. So unionizing will help get the players or the fighters in the organization on track so they feel like I mean, Conor McGregor too, right? He was getting crazy amounts of money, but like this will help them feel like more secure, and they're not going to, like, the lower ranked fighters aren't going to look at the Conor McGregors and be like, why does he get so much money and I don't get enough money? So that was my
Dude,
last
very good.
comment on the
I
whole.
didn't think about that at all. Very good point. And it kind of everything you're saying, it also reminds me like MMA, I feel like borrows too much of their ideas from boxing. Like they model too much of like their like structure on boxing, and so you're seeing the ugly parts of boxing come out too, where it's like becoming top heavy, right? Like I would love to see MMA independently move from boxing completely. Like, hey, we're not going to use your scoring system. We're a totally different sport. We're gonna, revamp everything, and we're gonna shoot up while boxing's gonna shoot down. Because already boxing is a joke. I'm just gonna say it right now. It's a total joke. Nobody cares. Like, especially like compared to MMA, it's just all just what do you call it? Novelty circus fights now that are the big attention grabbers. Nobody cares about the boxers that actually deserve merit, like the Bivol and the better Bievs of the world. Those fights no one cares about. Everyone cares about Gervonta and Jake Paul and Mike Tyson. Like who cares? Like you're seeing all these boxers from the glory days back when boxing was big. There's no big boxers anymore. The Crawford Canelo fight was so boring. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I think that with the unionizing, it's just the smartest move for everybody. And honestly, like I think you're right. Like even Tom Aspinall's like talking about leaving. He wants to finish out his contract and go to boxing, is what he said. So, it's
I
just
mean,
a
it's
shambles.
safer.
Yeah,
The
and I
way
feel
that
like
they're currently officiating, it's safer if he goes to boxing so he can keep his eyes, bro. I mean, it
yeah,
shouldn't
man.
be
And
this
and and
complicated.
honestly, like I'm just so fed up with like Dana White, honestly. and just like how little it seems like he cares about the UFC as the CEO. He's like getting into boxing and power slap now. Like I would like to see the UFC move in a better direction. But again, let's keep go on to the to like another
Yeah,
big part of the news, which is Isaac Dulgarian.